Okay. Get into position. Fix the hair. Make sure the hair is good. I don't want to get made fun of. What's up, YouTube? We're back with another video today. Today we're going to be looking at secondary weapons and how they perform currently versus the Hive worlds and in general against Rupture and Terminid enemies. We're going to be ranking them from S to D tier. Just keep in mind that I'm not a huge melee enjoyer. Okay, there's going to be people that love melee way more than me and probably have more knowledge on melee than me. I mostly look at melee as something to kill small bugs occasionally, but if I'm bringing a knife to a gun battle, the gun will just win, in my opinion. All right, I just think the utility of the gun is way higher, so it will probably reflect that in this tier list, but I do see the utility of melee being useful at sometimes. Don't let my tier list stop you from being a melee enjoyer and having fun with your melee weapons. All right, this is purely just me looking at how utilitarian are the different secondaries and how do they rank up against each other and giving people some advice. Cool? Let's get into it. All right, first in the tier list, we have the warrant. The warrant is our first tracking-oriented Judge Dredd kind of weapon. Medium pen, one-handed. Guided rounds. When you aim down sight, you will start guiding them towards targets. Lower on the damage, pretty low on capacity. I like the weapon, but it's mostly in situations where I can't see. It actually works pretty well. Like in very dark or like a lot of volumetric cloudy environments, it actually works pretty nicely against a lot of bugs, especially bugs that you might have a trouble tracking onto, I don't know, the occasional hunter or pouncer and stuff like that. The lower damage does end up affecting it, so if you are someone that just has decent aim, you're probably going to be better off using like something along the lines of the Verdict instead. Just getting that big damage bump I think is worth it, but you know, if you find a lot of utility in just like using a spear or a wasp, you might also be a big warrant enjoyer as well. So give it a try. I don't think it's necessarily a bad weapon. I'm going to give it like a pretty big glowing recommendation of like A-, let's say, for now. I might move it, later in the tier list, but I do think it is a cool weapon to use, and it does have like its strengths against bugs, especially when like there's a spore charger nearby, or like a spore and you just can't deal with it, or nursing spears and you just can't see, or in the caves. I think there's something to be said about the weapon performing pretty well. Next, we have the Peacemaker, 85 damage, 15 in the magazine, decent fire rate if you can click fast enough. It's also, this one's not shown, but it's also a very quiet weapon. It doesn't attract a lot of attention. I think it is classified as like the quietest weapon in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Someone can correct me in the comments down below, but it's a very quiet weapon, being your first. I think it's okay. It's probably like a C tier, nothing crazy about it. Light pen. It's got a decent amount of ammo now, which is nice, but there's going to be a lot of situations where I'd actually just rather bring the Redeemer, because I actually do think, we're kind of skipping ahead here, but the Redeemer is kind of just like a better Peacemaker in a lot of ways, because you can just put the Redeemer in single fire mode and just fire it that way if you wanted to, right? Or you can keep the Redeemer in full auto and just mag dump things. You'll go through the ammo ridiculously fast, but the DPS on it is insane. I'm not going to put it anywhere higher than C tier for the Redeemer, just because like nobody uses it anymore unless you just don't have any other options. It's just kind of felt power crept. I think both of these weapons have just felt power crept compared to our other options that we have available to us. So I don't think they're any higher than they currently are. Verdict. I love this weapon. I absolutely love it. I'm not going to quite put it in S tier because it doesn't quite have the same utility as some weapons, but it's just a super solid medium pen, great for Rupture warriors and stuff like that. Just like, it just feels really good to use. I highly recommend it. Great magazine, great mag dumping, good backup mags. Like, it's just solid. It's a workhorse kind of weapon. It doesn't do anything special, but it doesn't need to. It just works, which is awesome. And it doesn't have anything finicky with it, like with the warrant, that you have to play around and stuff like that. It just, so I would definitely like recommend the verdict more than the warrant, but it's good. I highly recommend. The Halo pistol. The Halo pistol has some awesome things about it and some not so awesome things. It's mostly going to just be compared to a better version, in my opinion, to the Peacemaker. Unfortunately, the suppressed side of it seems to not be working. I've heard several reports that the suppressed side is just not doing anything. I cannot confirm that personally with my own testing, but it's got a great aesthetic and it's at least got a laser sight, which is cool, but I'm just trying to make up excuses for it this way. It's not that good. It's like a slightly better version of the Peacemaker. I'm probably going to put it like maybe C+ or something along those lines. I do think it's slightly better than the regular Peacemaker just because obviously better damage per shot, but it's only got 12 in the magazine rather than 15. You know, I don't know. It's just the Peacemaker with different skin on it. It's Halo, and if you loved ODST, that's your weapon, I guess. All right, next we have the Senator. The Senator is kind of like a workhorse utility weapon. I really like this weapon on bots. It's like easily S tier for me. It doesn't get nearly as much usage on the bug front, mostly just down to the fact that it is a 6-shooter with a fairly slow reload if you do not empty the entire magazine. The extra pen, being pen 4, is nice. You know, it's heavy pen, which is cool, but I don't think it really gets that much usage on the bot front. It will do some bonus damage to medium armor, just because you're not matching the armor. You're actually overmatching it, so you do the full damage of 200, which is cool, which could make it a little bit better versus like Hive Guardians and, you know, Rupture Strain and stuff like that. But because it's only a 6-shooter, it's definitely more like high, you know, high risk, high reward in that regard. So your mileage may vary. I do think it's like a solid A tier pick still, because you can one tap quite a few of the like lower tier enemies. But if you're not always hitting your shots with it, it will feel hard to use, especially since like it's got a fairly slow reload compared to like the Verdict. I would recommend the Verdict over it because I don't think on this front the Senator shines nearly as bright as just like a standard medium pen weapon. Okay, next going into the Stun Lance. The Stun Lance is an interesting one because it has the stun buildup. Just a heads up, before I get into these melee weapons, I kind of forgot to mention, it says light armor pen, it's actually medium. I don't know why they put that for all of these ones except for the machete. It's just a UI bug. They are in fact medium pen. They will penetrate medium armor. They won't penetrate heavy armor, so like a, you know, Charger's leg or stuff like that anymore, because they did fix that. It no longer like goes through the armor and then hits the like the weak underside. It now like deflects off. So you, if you're gonna attack a Charger, for instance, go for the butt. Anyways, back to Stun Lance. It has a ton of stun buildup, which is really nice for like meleeing. It's personally probably up there with like my favorite melee weapon just because of the stun buildup. And it's kind of just a different flavor of the Stun Baton, right? Stun Baton will attack faster. Stun Lance attacks slower, but has more reach, and it's easier to hit weak points, because that is a fairly important thing to look at when you're meleeing. Where you melee is important. If you can hit a weak point, you will just do more damage than if you just hit the body or a limb or something along those lines, right? So because of that, I personally really like the Stun Lance, and it actually goes up to B tier. I think it's decent and a fairly good option for people that want to melee and not get hit in return. Because a big problem I have with melee in this game is if you melee something, you don't always stagger the enemy, and then he'll just melee you back. So you're hit trading constantly. And as you know, Helldivers are fairly weak. We do get absolutely destroyed by enemies in melee. So it's a bit hard for me to always recommend, you know, something other than the Stun Lance. You know, against smaller enemies, you're going to stagger them pretty much no matter what you melee them with. Like if you're using like a hunter, if you're using it against a hunter or something like that. But like if you're meleeing a brood commander, you're not always going to get that like great like stagger, and they might just hit you at the same time. But with the Stun Lance, you're not only staggering them, but you're stunning them on top of that, which gives you just even more time to get the next melee off. which is really nice. The Masters of Ceremony Saber, basically a faster attack rate. Not as fast as like a hatchet, it seems like, but it has more of like a sweeping attack. So more or less on par with the machete. I'm going to probably put it somewhere in C tier. Once again, I don't think it has nearly as much utility as the stun lance, but fairly good option for someone that wants something a little bit faster attacking and has more sweeping, so you don't have to be as accurate with it. So like for like smaller enemies or even like a bunch of hunters on you or pouncers, fairly decent. The stun baton, I'm going to put it right next to the stun lance, although I don't like the stun baton nearly as much because it doesn't have as much reach. It definitely is a smaller, hitbox, range on it. Hurtbox range. Fairly good option for meleeing. Same kind of thing as a stun lance though, where you definitely want to try and hit weak points, and if you can stun something, it can't hit you back, which I think is better than just being able to hit something harder. Keep that in mind. I think the hatchet is something that I would actually use over the Master of Ceremony, just because it can hit weak points a little bit easier, because it's actually like just a downwards thrust of a weapon. I see a lot of people like using this with like the ballistic shield, kind of doing like sword and board kind of action, which works pretty well. That being said, one thing I didn't mention about the stun lance is that when you use the stun lance with the ballistic shield, you actually stay behind the shield the entire time while you poke, whereas with a lot of melee weapons, when the ballistic shield, you actually open up your stance to melee, so if the enemy is going to hit you in that moment, he can actually still hit you. Your shield is not doing anything, which is kind of weird. I kind of wish that when you like went to melee with the hatchet and stuff like that, you didn't open up your stance and it worked a little bit better. A little nitpicky, but yeah, I do definitely wish that melee worked a little better with the shield overall. They definitely took that into account for the stun lance, but not the other weapons as I've seen. Okay, the Stim pistol. I think the Stim pistol is like easily like A+, almost even S tier. It just depends on the type of player, right? I think if you're someone who like plays with your teammates a lot, the Stim pistol is awesome as like a team-oriented weapon, but it's hard to use sometimes, especially when your enemies don't stand still and you swear they have ADHD. You definitely need to have some amount of comms to like, hey, Timmy, stand still so I can shoot you with my Stim pistol. That's hard to do when they're like freaking out and they're getting meleeed. But it's awesome to have just to like save on stims and just be that medic character. Just remember your medic armor does affect it, so it works even more efficiently when you Stim pistol someone. So highly recommend bringing those together. But it's great for the caves. Highly recommend. Yeah, really enjoy using the Stim pistol from time to time, or just having someone on the team, right? Like having someone on the team, you love seeing it. It's great. It's so good. Bushwhacker. Bushwhacker is my first weapon that I'm like teetering on putting in an S tier. It's a bit difficult because I really like the weapon, but I don't think it works particularly well against the Rupture strain, just because it's mostly a medium oriented enemy, like medium armor oriented enemy. And the Bushwhacker is harder to use against the Rupture warriors because a lot of their front facing armor is medium. You can get the pellets to like knock them back against like, you know, their underbelly or their arms and stuff like that. But I felt like a lot of times it was unreliable because I would just get all the pellets to bounce off their head, which kind of sucked. I still think the Bushwhacker is very good against stalkers in the caves in particular. If you don't have any CC, like knockback, tied into your loadout, Bushwhacker is awesome, especially if you're someone who's using like the crossbow or something like that. Really good to just push her back. Same with Brood Commanders, pushing them back. Really nice. Even for like Shriekers, if you don't want to be too accurate, just firing that buckshot into the sky, really useful. So I would recommend the Bushwhacker. It's one of the better items inside the Viper Commando Warbond. I really enjoy it, especially like if you're someone who, like I said, someone who enjoys the crossbow or the Eruptor, fantastic. Really good damage, independent, like because it does basically the Punisher level of damage, but in your secondary slot, which feels really nice. It's not as accurate, but it feels really nice. And they've been like increasing the reload speed over the course of its like existence, which makes it feel a lot nicer. Especially if you wear the Borderline Justice, this thing reloads so fast. Next, the Talon, a fan favorite. Everybody loves this weapon. It is your verdict, but unlimited ammo. This weapon is great if you don't spam it. As long as you let it cool down and you're just using it occasionally for a couple shots here and there, it works really well, like extremely well. Unlimited ammo, auto reloading verdict, basically. It kind of just is the step above the verdict in many ways, and I think it's our first S tier. I can't give it enough of a glowing review other than the fact that, like, if you haven't tried it, give it a try. The only downside that I can really give is that it has a lot of sway. It's hard to use at like 50 meters or so, but in those like close range engagements, Talon feels fantastic as a secondary weapon on ultimately a lot of factions, but it does feel good against Rupture Strain because of all the medium pen. If you're someone that likes bringing a light pen weapon, you can rely on the Talon to be your medium pen weapon to lean on, in my opinion. It feels very good. Just don't spam fire it. That's the biggest mistake a lot of people make, is that they take it out and they spam fire it 5 times. It overheats and then you have this ridiculously long reload. But as long as you're like constantly just using it like a couple shots here and there, it cools down very fast and you can kind of just keep using it, right? It feels very nice. Highly recommend. Crisper, solid A tier pick. I think it's a little bit of a sleeper pick for a lot of people. I don't think it's quite S tier, but it has awesome CC potential in the terms of like area denial of the enemies, right? You're going to get a lot of times where you're going to have a ton of enemies coming from like a narrow passageway. You can just light the ground on fire, move back, or just light them all on fire, move back, light them all on fire, move back. It's great in conjunction with a lot of like pushback or like gas. You know, if they're already gassed up enemies, you can then just put another damage over time effect to cause them to die even faster, right? Feels very nice. It can actually delete a charger's butt very fast if you can get behind it. Yeah, I would recommend even like a Ball Titan's butt. Like if you can get underneath and fire it straight up, it does good damage per second to weak points. It is kind of a sleeper pick in that regard. Impalers as well. You can get like to underneath their mouth or like to the top of their forehead. It can delete them. Highly recommend giving it a try if you haven't already. Great. The utility king of the secondary slot is the grenade pistol. Fantastic weapon if you haven't used it. So good. It's arguably like probably my most used secondary. Whenever I have a support weapon or I don't have the ability to bring like a grenade that's like really good for closing bug holes, this is what I bring. It's just so good at like having so much utility. And even in Rupture Strain, it feels really nice for forcing Rupture enemies out of the ground or for deleting those Bile Spears, because obviously explosive damage, very good versus them. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. For those bug holes, dealing with like just so many different things. It's an easy S tier pick. I highly recommend it. Democratic Detonation is a fantastic war bond, and if you don't already have it, grab it. Okay, next we go to the Dagger. This is our first laser energy weapon other than the Talon. I like the Dagger, but the Dagger falls short on Rupture Strain in particular, just because, once again, light pen versus heavy, and also the status effect changes that they've made. It's harder to light enemies on fire than it was about a month ago. So the Dagger has fallen down to like, I think like a middle B. I do think it's better than a lot of the other light pen weapons that you can bring versus Rupture, because I do like bringing it versus like Shriekers and Hunters and Pouncers. It is nice, but it's not going to feel very good against like the rest of the Rupture Strain, which is a lot of what dictates this tier list. It's not a bad pick, but I also don't think it's a great pick. Ultimatum has definitely shined quite brightly, I think, recently especially. I'm going to put it right up there in S tier, especially since it's one of the few weapons that deals with mega nests inside tier 10 caves. So if you haven't realized already, the big Bile Titan hole can only be killed by like a spear, the spear rocket launcher, Ultimatum, an enemy dying on top of it. It's usually the larger enemies, so like Impaler, Charger, Bile Titan, or getting one of those enemies I just listed to melee next to it. But if you don't want to deal with any of that, you have the Ultimatum. Also, the Hellbound backpack is also an option. Hopefully Dynamite in the future. Please, devs, make Dynamite do it. That'd be so cool. All right. I think the Ultimatum is fantastic. Although you only get 2 shots, those shots do a ton of damage. You can easily one-shot chargers, and there's a lot of them in the caves even. You can one-shot ball titans if they have them in the head. You can one-shot impalers. You can one-shot objectives. You do a ton of damage to hive lords. And yes, you can hit dragons as well. If you haven't already, try out the tech where it's use your primary weapon, swap to your ultimatum, and as you're swapping, like you're doing the animation, hold down the fire button. Your ultimatum shot will go about twice the distance. It's crazy. That tech is still in the game, and it does make it way more useful against like dragons and stuff like that, because dragons tend to fly a fair bit away from you, their normal ultimatum distance. So give that a try. Really useful. Ultimatum's awesome. Great war bond. Okay. For a really big glow up, I'm personally never really a huge fan of the Loyalist. This has been a weapon that it just doesn't fit my playstyle, because it's definitely a weapon that you need to preemptively bring out and charge fire it. But usually when I bring a sidearm of this type, I want it to be able to be pulled out and useful immediately. I don't want to have to charge it. But versus Rupture Strain, you can use the Loyalist to force enemies out of the ground. So if you don't have a explosive primary weapon, you can bring the Loyalist. And you don't need bug hole clearing potential because maybe you have the grenade launcher or something like that. You can use the Loyalist. Charge shot or regular shot has an AoE component to it, which forces them up out of the ground. Very nice. I don't think it's quite S tier, but I definitely think it's like very close to it. Like maybe S minus. It's definitely a bit of a sleeper pick. I don't see a lot of people using it, but it is very useful for that. It doesn't have quite the like utility of the higher S tier, and it doesn't quite have the usability or the like unlimited ammo usefulness of the Talon. But if you're really struggling, especially if you're the host and those Rupture Warriors are like heat-seeking missiles and you just need to force them out of the ground early, the Loyalist is a fairly good option if you don't want to bring a primary weapon or a support weapon that has explosive damage. You can use it for that. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Okay. And lastly, with our last melee weapon, we have the machete. I don't know if this is just like, you know, like honeymoon phase of the weapon or something like that, but I kind of like it more than the other melee weapons at the moment. And, you know, I'll say it again for the people in the back. No, this melee weapon isn't the only one to have medium armor pen. They all have medium armor pen. It's a UI bug. They all have medium armor pen. I like the machete more so than the other ones. I definitely did. I felt like it was kind of nice versus them, other than the other melee weapons. It's a slower melee swing than like the Saber or the Hatchet, but it felt like it was doing enough damage on that swing. Like I was pretty consistently one-shotting hunters without even hitting the mouth with that wide swing. Like I could get like multiple hunter kills with like one swing, which is kind of cool. But you know, I think melee weapons at the end of the day are so personal preference that like, and just remember, I'm not like a pure melee enjoyer. It's so rare to see me using a melee weapon on stream. It's typically someone telling me to use it through like a channel point redeem to like give me a build. It's pretty rare to see me. So maybe don't take my opinion on melee weapons, you know, but I don't know. I kind of like the machete. Who knows? Yeah, that's my tier list. I think I'm pretty happy with where everything is placed. I think, you know, I definitely would recommend giving the Loyalist a try if you haven't already. I think a lot of people kind of like sleep on how good it is against Rupture Strain in particular. It can feel like a baby purifier at times. So give it a try. Seriously. It might surprise you. It might surprise you because it's definitely a weapon that I think a lot of people have kind of like forgotten about because it's from a war bond that isn't the best. It's got some decent things in it, but it isn't like a hallmark war bond, but it's pretty useful for this strain. Pretty cool. Anyways, let me know down below, what is your S tier? What are you guys bringing for your secondary weapons in the comments down below? If you haven't already, leave a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel. We'll be doing more tier lists in the future. I think the next one we're going to do is armor. We're going to do an armor tier list. Yeah, very excited to see where I place things. I definitely think I have a different opinion than many, maybe, on the Hive worlds. But in general, it's nice to do a new tier list on armor. We haven't done it in a while. I think it's been like more than 6 months. And there's been so many new armors that have added, and they've also readjusted the armors quite a bit. So it'll be interesting to get back into that one. But anyways, thank you so much, YouTube. Peace out. All right. All right, chat. Let me do a marker. Tier list. Secondary. Weapons. Hive. Worlds. Okay, marker is made. Perfect. All right.